History Network show. It is Wednesday, December 15th, 2021, and we are live. So last month, we all were shocked by the news that out of Manhattan, the District Attorney Cy Vance um, had come to the conclusion that the two men convicted in the assassination of Malcolm X were wrongly convicted. Okay. Khalil Islam and Muhammad Aziz. And as we talked about here on this show last month, I said that Muhammad Aziz, who's still alive, he'll probably sue for wrongful conviction. Okay, well, NBC, Washington, and also New York Times as well. They have a story. Muhammad Aziz. They have a story. Man exonerated in the killing of Malcolm X. Sues New York City and New York State for $60 million. Okay, so we're going to talk about this on today's show. NBC Washington has this story. We're going to pull it up here. Also, New York Times has a piece on this as well, and CNN. So he's suing the city and the state. He's suing New York City and the state of New York. Okay, so we'll give you an update on that. This is a piece here from NBC for Washington. Man exonerated in killing of Malcolm X to sue New York City and New York State for $60 million. Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam long maintained their innocence in the 1965 assassination, and a Netflix documentary spurred a review of the case. Okay, so we'll discuss that. Now, I have an update to the story that we talked about yesterday dealing with Senator Raphael Warnock. And Senator Raphael Warnock on the Senate floor on Tuesday, December 14th, calling out both Democrats and Republicans for not changing the filibuster rules to pass voting rights, but changing the filibuster rules to raise the debt ceiling. Okay. And I said I was going to play the clip of him on the Senate floor yesterday. And so we have it. He was on the Rachel Maddow show Tuesday night. So we have that clip. You don't want to miss that because, I mean, he really broke it down. And one of the things he said was for the people who say that isn't bipartisanship important, he said, yes, bipartisanship is important, but he said slavery was bipartisan. Okay. He said Jim Crow was bipartisan. So we're going to let you hear from Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock from Georgia. And then at the end of yesterday's show, when we were broadcasting here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF, let me back up for a second. Also, civil rights leaders had a meeting today with some key Democratic senators. And just before coming on this show, I was watching an interview with Derek Johnson of the NAACP, and it looks like overall they had a good meeting. And they had a meeting with some senators. Now, Senator Gary Peters of Michigan, was the one who organized the meeting. And Senator Gary Peters was on Reverend Al Sharpton's radio show today, Keeping It Real, that airs here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Now, there was this piece here from NBC News this morning. It was posted 4:34 a.m. Today, and this was about the meeting that was coming up. Tomorrow we'll have more information on that meeting. Overall, the movement is being made to work around the filibuster. And one of the things that's happened, one of the things that's helping that is what's coming out of the January 6th committee and how well planned and how deep the insurrection went in trying to overthrow the government and overturn the election results. So people are seeing how detailed the plan was, and some of the Republicans like Jim Jordan, some of these Republicans who were coordinating with the White House to carry this out. But this article here, it needs to be updated because this came out this morning before the meeting took place. Black leaders to push Biden White House for more voting rights muscle. And Biden signaled that the Build Back Better plan is not going to pass by Christmas. And there's a shift that's taking place right now where passing the voting rights bill, the John Lewis voting rights bill, and the Freedom to Vote Act is becoming more urgent. And more Democrats in the Senate are seeing how urgent it is to get these bills passed. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. And then on yesterday's show, when we ran out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF, I was talking about Vice President Kamala Harris and her address at the Freedmen's Bureau, at the Freedmen's Bank, annual forum. And there's very little coverage in mainstream media about this. We talked about this piece here from Reuters.com. U.S. Treasury funnels $8.7 billion in COVID aid to community minority leaders. So I'm going to let you hear the rest of her speech yesterday. And she talked about structural inequity. She talked about racism, racial wealth gap, things like that. Since yesterday's show, thegrio.com has an article on this. We posted it on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Once again, I've seen very little coverage on this in mainstream media. We talked about this piece yesterday from Reuters.com, picked up by Yahoo.com. U.S. Treasury funnels $8.7 billion in okay, hold on, let's go back. U.S. Treasury funnels $8.7 billion in COVID aid to community minority lenders. So we'll deal with this on the other side of the break, and we'll talk about Ancestry.com launches a new Freedmen's Bureau records to help African Americans better trace their roots. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Stand by. Share this broadcast on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Stand by. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on social media platforms. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. All right. Who still needs to register for the online classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays? From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. Okay, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the online classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And then we do this 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a 10-week online course. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. And then as soon as you register, you can watch the classes we did last week and the week before that. And then this one here, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Stand by, back from break in 3 minutes, in 2 minutes. We'll post the information here so you can register for the classes. Okay, which one are we going to? We're going with this one here. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, December 15th, 2021. And we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Okay, well, you remember last month, everybody remembers, we talked about the shocking story that came out of Manhattan District Attorney's Office, Cy Vance, and the story that the two men who had been incarcerated, who've been convicted and incarcerated for assassinating Malcolm X, they had been exonerated. Okay, they had been exonerated because of new evidence, and we talked about the updates from the New York Times. Motion to vacate convictions finds that crucial evidence was withheld. A motion filed by the Manhattan District Attorney, Cy Vance, asking a judge to toss out the convictions of Muhammad A. Aziz and Khalil Islam in the murder of Malcolm X, concludes that that crucial evidence was withheld during the men's trial. Crucial evidence was withheld during the men's trial. The 43-page motion, which was granted at a hearing on Thursday, this was last month. That was around November 18th. The murder of, let's see, the 3-page motion, which was granted at a hearing on Thursday, described in detail the investigation conducted by the district attorney, Cyrus R. Vance Jr., and the men's lawyers. It concludes that if evidence withheld by the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the New York Police Department had been given to the defense, the trial would likely have gone differently. The trial would likely have gone differently. And back then, I was saying that Muhammad A. Aziz, who's still alive, he'll probably sue for a wrongful conviction, and he's filed a he's going to sue for $60 million in total. Okay, we're going to clip number one in just a second here, Shakita. NBC4 Washington, as well as New York Times and CNN, are reporting man exonerated in killing of Malcolm X to sue New York City and New York State for $60 million. Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam long maintained their innocence in the 1965 assassination, and the Netflix documentary, Who Killed Malcolm X, a Netflix documentary spurred a review of the case. Now, one of two men exonerated after spending decades in prison for the assassination of Malcolm X, intended to sue both New York City and the state of New York for as much as $60 million. Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus R. Vance and attorneys for Muhammad Aziz and the late Khalil Islam moved last month, November 2021, to vacate their 1966 convictions. Cyrus R. Vance, District Attorney Cyrus R. Vance, in an interview with the New York Times, apologized and acknowledged, quote, the severity of the error in their cases, the severity of the error in their cases. Authorities in their trial withheld evidence favorable to the defense, said the Innocence Project and civil rights lawyer David Shanies, the attorneys for the two men. Now, Attorney David Shinies confirmed Tuesday, December 14th, that Muhammad Aziz will take legal action over the purported damage to his reputation. He has filed a $20 million claim against the state and a notice with the city of New York of an intended claim of $40 million unless a settlement can be reached. The Office of the Attorney General declined to comment. I think they are referring to the Attorney General of the state of New York, Letitia James, declined to comment at the time of this article. Now, Cyrus R. Vance, District Attorney Cyrus R. Vance's office launched a review of the case in early 2020 after a Netflix documentary raised serious questions about the innocence of Muhammad Aziz, who was known at the time as Norman 3X Butler, and Khalil Islam, who was known at the time as Thomas 15 X Johnson. I want to go back to this clip here from NBC News. This is from November 18th, 2021. Muhammad Aziz calls wrongful conviction for killing of Malcolm X result of quote unquote corrupt process. Let's go to this clip, Shakita. Okay, so press play, I guess, when you're ready. So check out this piece from NBC4 Washington, and then also New York Times has an extensive article on this as well. CNN has a good piece also. The one from, just press play when it's ready. The one from the New York Times is man exonerated in Malcolm X murder files. Go ahead.
It never occurred. Those events were and are the result of the process that was corrupt and misformed. One of the faulty delivered to Black people in 2021. While I do not need this court, these prosecutors, or a piece of paper or tell me I'm innocent, I'm very glad that my family, my friends, and the attorneys who have worked and supported me over these years are finally saying the truth that they have all known, officially recognized. I'm an 83-year-old man who was victimized by the criminal justice system. I do not know how many more years of creative activity I have. However, I hope the same system that was responsible for this travesty of justice also takes responsibility for the immeasurable harm caused to me during the last 55 or 56 years. Thank you all.
There can be no question that this is a case that cries out for fundamental justice. This court's paramount purpose is, and always has been, to uphold the law and pursue justice. To Mr. Aziz and your family, and to the family of Mr. Islam, I regret that this court cannot fully undo the serious miscarriages of justice in this case and give you back the many years that were lost. Dismissal of the indictment is the full extent of this court's authority. But for the reasons set forth in the joint application and based on the record that has been made today, this court's mandate requires that the judgments of conviction be vacated and that the indictment against Mr. Aziz and Mr. Islam be dismissed. The joint motion is hereby granted, and the record is
okay, so that is from NBC News. That's from November 18th, 2021. That was Thursday, November 18th, 2021, in court when they were the two were officially exonerated. Now we know Khalil Islam passed away, but Muhammad Aziz is still alive. You can also check out this piece from New York Times: Man exonerated in Malcolm X murder files lawsuit against New York State. Okay, man exonerated in Malcolm X murder files lawsuit against New York State. I think they need a comment there somewhere. But anyway, now the name of the documentary was Who Killed Malcolm X? Who Killed Malcolm X, which came out, I think it was February of 2020. And because of the information in the documentary, it caused the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to reopen the investigation to the assassination of Malcolm X. You had many people, you had who were calling for the investigation to be reopened and look at this new information. There was also a piece that we looked at last month as well from Huffington Post, and the name of the article from the Huffington Post is J. Edgar Hoover hid that some witnesses in Malcolm X assassination trial were FBI informants. Okay, now this is a piece from the Huffington Post that we dealt with last month also, and I'm gonna try to pull this up here. Yeah, go Hoover hid that some witnesses in Malcolm X assassination were FBI informants, and this was an article picked up from the Associated Press, picked up by the Huffington Post. Okay, so check this out as well. Hoover hid that some witnesses in Malcolm X assassination trial were FBI informants. A Manhattan judge exonerated 2 men convicted of killing the revolutionary leader after decades of doubt about who was responsible for his 1965 death. So that's from November 18th, 2021 by the Huffington Post. They picked it up from the Associated Press. Okay, so we'll keep you up to date on what we find out in that lawsuit. We're coming up here on a break. Listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by, everybody. Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by.
History Network show, we deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know.
We have it all on 910 AM Superstation. 910, the Superstation, the oldest radio station in town since 1922.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Wednesday, December 15th, 2021, and we are live. All right, if you like this type of information, you can register for the online courses I teach on Saturdays and Sundays, the history classes. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. We do that on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime. And then on Sundays, I teach Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So these are 10-week online classes. As soon as you register, you can watch the classes we did last week. We have a special bundle pack. The classes are regularly $130. We have a bundle pack right now for a limited time only. You can register for both classes for only $70. So it's right on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can watch them around the world. And even after the class is over with, you still have full access to the archive classes. You can go back and watch it anytime. Okay. I want to get to the second story here. So on yesterday's show, on our Tuesday show, we talked about Senator Raphael Warnock on the Senate floor, calling out the hypocrisy of Democrats and Republicans. Actually, 14 Republicans voted to raise the debt limit. 14 Republicans helped break the filibuster so Democrats could vote to raise the debt limit. And one of the things that Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia asked is, well, if you can do that to save the economy, if you can alter the filibuster, get around the filibuster to save the economy, why can't you do the same thing to save the democracy? NBC News has this piece here. Senator sees debt limit increase as model to pass voting legislation. Discontent is simmering among some Democrats that voting legislation has stalled because of Republican opposition. Now, there's been movement since yesterday. This article came out, and Senator Raphael Warnock eviscerated both Democrats and Republicans on the Senate floor, but especially Republicans. And then the meeting today with civil rights leaders, African-American civil rights leaders, with Biden officials at the White House. Well, there was one with Biden officials at the White House, but there was also a conference call with about 7 to 9 Democratic senators. Okay. And there's movement being made there, progress being made there as well. We're going to have an update on what happened at this meeting, because this article was written before the meeting actually happened. Black leaders to push Biden White House for more voting rights muscle as the president tries to drive his $1.75 trillion Build Back Better bill through the Senate. He has been reluctant to raise pressure on Democrats. But now this was before what happened today, because today Biden said basically voting rights is the most important thing now, and Build Back Better is getting moved to the side because Joe Biden met with Senator Joe Manchin at the White House on Monday, and they're not going to be able to get Build Back Better passed by Christmas. So the tide is turning because of the activism, because of the pressure, and because of what's coming out of the January 6th committee and the collaboration and the text messages that came out of the January 6th committee the past couple of days. the text messages to Mark Meadows when the insurrection was taking place and Donald Trump was back at the White House watching it with glee. Okay. All this stuff is coming out. You see Jim Jordan being exposed also. GOP Jim Jordan, a Trump flunky. Okay. GOP Jim Jordan confirms January 6th panel released text messages he sent to Mark Meadows. Jim Jordan's office said the text from the Ohio Republican was a forwarded message and that the January 6th committee misrepresented its content by shortening it. Well, you voted to not certify the election results. Okay. So all this information is coming out about how detailed and well planned the attempted insurrection was. So the red lights are on the dashboard of democracy. All the red lights are on the dashboard of democracy. And and Senator Raphael Warnock, we're going to clip 2, Shakita, from the Rachel Maddow show. Senator Raphael Warnock drew attention to the flashing dashboard yesterday, and it's reverberating all across the country. Let's go to clip 2.
Raphael Warnock of the great state of Georgia is one of the best orators the United States Senate has seen in a very, very long time. Watch him on this today. Watch.
Democrats have tried again and again to engage our Republican friends in a discussion on this issue, one that lies at the foundation of our democracy. And time again, because of a lack of good faith engagement, the rules of the Senate have prevented us from moving that conversation forward. We could not imagine changing the rules. That is, until last week.
Mm-hmm.
Because last week, we did exactly that. Be very clear, last week, we changed the rules of the Senate to address another important issue, the economy. This is a step, a change in the Senate rules we haven't been willing to take to save our broken democracy, but one that a bipartisan majority of this chamber thought was necessary in order to keep our economy strong. We changed the rules to protect the full faith and credit of the United States government. We've decided we must do it for the economy, but not for the democracy. So, Madam President, I will be honest. This has been a difficult week for me as I've pondered how am I going to vote on this debt ceiling question we're about to take. I feel like I'm being asked to take a road that is a point of moral dissonance for me. Because while I deeply believe that both our democracy and our economy are important, I believe that it is misplaced to change the Senate rules only for the benefit of the economy when the warning lights on our democracy are flashing at the same time. Madam President, in light of the conniving methods of voter suppression we have seen enacted into law since the January 6th attack on the Capitol, I come to the floor today to share with the people of Georgia and the American people the message that I shared with my colleagues over the weekend and earlier today during our caucus meeting. I said to my Democratic colleagues over the last several days, number one, unfortunately, the vast majority of our Republican friends have made it clear that they have no intention of trying to work with us to address voter suppression or to protect voting rights. While we cannot let our Republican friends off the hook for not being equitable governing partners, if we are serious about protecting the right to vote that's under assault right now, here's the truth. It will fall to Democrats to do it. And if Democrats alone must raise the debt ceiling, then Democrats alone must raise and repair the ceiling of our democracy. How do we in good conscience justify doing one and not the other? Some of my Democratic colleagues are saying, but what about bipartisanship? Isn't that important? I say, of course it is. But here's the thing we must remember. Slavery was bipartisan.
Woo!
Jim Crow segregation was bipartisan. The refusal of women's suffrage was bipartisan. The denial of the basic dignity of members of the LGBTQ community has long been bipartisan. The 3/5 compromise was the creation of a putative national unity at the expense of Black people's basic humanity. So when colleagues in this chamber talk to me about bipartisanship, which I believe in, I just have to ask, at whose expense? Who is being asked to foot the bill for this bipartisanship? And is liberty itself the cost? I submit that that's a price too high and a bridge too far. To my Democratic colleagues, I say, while it is deeply unfortunate, it is more than apparent that it has been left to us to handle alone the task of safeguarding our democracy. The judgment of history is upon us. Future generations will ask, when the democracy was in a 911 state of emergency, what did you do to put the fire out? Did we rise to the moment, or did we hide behind procedural rules? I believe that we Democrats can figure out how to get this done, even if that requires a change in the rules, which we established just last week that we can do when the issue is important enough. Well, the people of Georgia and across the country are saying that voting rights are important enough. I think the voting rights are important enough. Once we handle the debt ceiling, the Senate needs to make voting rights the very next issue we take up. We must do voting rights, and we must deal with this issue now.
All right, pause it right there, Shakita. We're coming up on a break. Okay, when we come back from the break, you're going to hear the part of the portion of the interview that Rachel Maddow did with Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia. See, that's an example of how elections have consequences. That brother, I mean, nobody could disagree with what he's saying. Okay, he called them out, both Democrats and Republicans, and we showed the article from CNN, and we talked about this yesterday. You have 14 Republicans that voted last week to change to break the filibuster, to allow Democrats to then vote with get 51 votes to raise the debt limit, and only Democrats voted for that. So then in the midterms, Republicans can then blame Democrats for raising the debt limit and say it was them that did it. Read this article from CNN. 14 GOP senators broke a filibuster to advance debt limit fast track process, December 9th, 2021. Okay, you listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by. All right, if you'd like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. We'll post information here. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes. All right, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the online courses that I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Okay, we'll post the information here. Okay, share this broadcast on your social media platforms. No, McConnell is not still running the Senate. McConnell is the Senate minority leader. Senator Chuck Schumer is the Senate majority leader. Back from break in 1 minute. All right, here is the link for the course bundle pack. It's on sale $70 right now for the 2 classes I teach. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation and Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. We're going quickly back to the clip here. This is from the Rachel Maddow show from Tuesday, December 14th. And you just heard an excerpt of Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia on the U.S. Senate floor on Tuesday, December 14th, talking about the importance of voting rights and calling out the hypocrisy of changing the filibuster rules, working around the filibuster to raise the debt ceiling, but not doing it to pass voting rights. Now, if we look at this, okay, and read this article here from NBC News. Senator sees debt limit increase as model to pass voting legislation. Now, also, and this piece is out just today from the Washington Post. Senate Democrats renew focus on voting rights as domestic policy bill stalls and filibuster changes are considered. There have been meetings that have been taking place. Senator Joe Manchin has been having meetings with Republicans about making changes to the filibuster rule. We talked about the meetings that Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia has been having as well. We talked about this in the article from Axios.com from a couple of days ago. Clyburn predicts Dems will get around filibuster on voting rights. And in that article, it talks about a small group of Senate Democrats, including Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, have been huddling to discuss rule changes that could help pass voting rights without Republican support, but not in the filibuster. Now, the first thing that needs to happen is that the filibuster needs to be restored back to a talking, standing filibuster, where right now you have a lot of filibuster abuse. So any Republican can just call the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, and say they're going to filibuster a bill. You don't have to hold the floor. You don't have to stand on the floor. You don't have to have a talking filibuster, anything like that. Okay. You can just call from the country club. You can call when you're about to get on the plane and say that you want to filibuster a bill. And then it's up to the other party to then come up with 60 votes to break the filibuster. If you go back to a standing talking filibuster like it used to be, then the onus is on the obstructionists, okay, to hold the floor and get enough votes to actually block a bill. Look at this piece. Look at this article here from Washington Post. Senate Democrats renew focus on voting rights as domestic policy bill stalls and filibuster changes are considered. And this is what I was saying. The past couple of days, especially today, Build Back Better, even though it needs to be passed, the priority is shifting where voting rights, the urgency of voting rights is eclipsing Build Back Better. And it looks like Build Back Better will not pass by December 25th. So read this piece here. This just came out from the Washington Post. All right. Let's go back to this clip here from the Rachel Maddow show, Shakita. Okay. The clip we were just playing with Senator, just go back to the rest of the clip. This I think the rest of the portion is the interview with Senator Raphael Warnock. Is there anything else? Was that the end of the clip? Let me know. Okay. The interview is in the second portion. All right. This one I want to do quickly. We're going to go to clip 4 with Vice President Kamala Harris. Start that up at the 1 hour 50 minute mark. This is from yesterday, Tuesday, December 14th, the Freedmen's Bank Forum, and Vice President Kamala Harris announced billions of dollars for African American and minority businesses at the Freedmen's Bank Forum. We talked about this yesterday. This got very, very little media coverage. Don't know why. TheGrill.com has an article about this that came out today. Let's go to clip 4.
Own future. Some of us refer to that as self-determination. To put equity firmly at the center of our economic policy. So I talk about that today because I believe we must draw from the lessons of Greenwood and Freedman, of Sweet Auburn and Blaylock Bann. We must be intentional. Here's what I know to be true. America is a nation that is driven by the ambition and the aspirations of her people. But I also know that in America today, deep racial disparities continue to hold people back from achieving all they can. Today, the wealth gap persists. Today, the homeownership gap persists. Today, access to capital is unequal. As one example, Black entrepreneurs are 3 times more likely to report that a lack of access to capital negatively affects their profit margins. I believe that the actions we are taking and must take to address these disparities will define our nation's strength and economic strength in the 21st century. Our economy is growing faster than it has in decades. Unemployment is down to 4.2%, and nearly 6 million jobs have been added since January. As a nation, we cannot take this growth for granted, and we must make sure that everyone shares in this growth in order to sustain it. In a moment, the Secretary and I are going to sit down here and we're going to discuss some of the intentional actions that our administration is taking to lower costs for families and to remove barriers to success within all communities.
All right.
As but one example.
Pause right there.
We are.
Okay. All right. And she talked about increasing access to capital as well. Read this article here from thegrio.com. Vice President Harris, Treasury announced billions for Black minority businesses at Freedmen's Bank Forum. We talked about this on our show yesterday. After we went off the air, we were still going on our social media platforms, so I played the rest of her speech. You can go back and watch our show from December 14th as well. This article here is from December 15th. We talked about this on December 14th. Very little coverage in mainstream media. Don't know why. They should be all over this. If somebody high profile resigned from her office, they'd be all over that. So I don't know why they're not talking about this. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching for a couple more minutes. Remember, right now, it's correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. Stand by. Okay. Hold on. Let me disconnect this call. All right. Stand by, everybody. All right. Check out this piece here. Okay. Read the rest of this article here because this came out today. Vice President Harris, Treasury announced billions for Black minority businesses at Freedmen's Bank Forum. Black-owned businesses suffered disproportionately during the pandemic, with ownership rates seeing a 41% drop between February and April 2020. Vice President Kamala Harris and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen headlined the annual Freedmen's Bank Forum on Tuesday, announcing $8.7 billion in federal funding for financial institutions serving minority and underserved small business owners. Now, the sizable investment announced by the Office of the Vice President and the U.S. Treasury Department. The sizable announcement announced by the Office of the Vice President and the Treasury Department is part of $12 billion secured last year by Kamala Harris, who was then Senator Kamala Harris, when she was still in the U.S. Senate, because she helped. This was part of the coronavirus bill in 2020, and she helped write that portion of the bill along with Senator Cory Booker, Senator Chuck Schumer, Senator Mark Warner, and U.S. Rep. Maxine Waters, chairwoman of the House Financial Services Committee. Now, and this is a picture from yesterday. The Jobs and Neighborhood Investment Act was intended to support community financial institutions that serve low to moderate income and minority communities, as well as respond to the significant loss of Black-owned businesses and unemployment during the pandemic. Black-owned businesses suffered disproportionately during the pandemic, with ownership rates seeing a 41% drop between February and April of 2020. Okay. The largest rate of any racial group, according to a report by the U.S. House Small Business Committee. Okay. The U.S. House of Representatives Small Business Committee. Not to mention, Black-owned businesses are 20% less likely than white-owned businesses to obtain a loan from a large bank. Now, since becoming the nation's first Black vice president, Kamala Harris has worked with Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen to implement funding programs through community development financial institutions, CDFIs, community development financial institutions, and minority development institutions, MDIs, to ensure that small business owners in underserved communities can access capital in order to start and grow their businesses. Vice President Kamala Harris, and we played her speech yesterday. We played on our show on Tuesday from the Freedmen's Bank Forum. She said, quote, "In America today, deep racial disparities continue to hold people back from achieving all they can." She said, "Today, the wealth gap persists. Today, the home ownership gap persists. Access to capital is unequal. Black entrepreneurs are 3 times more likely to report that a lack of access to capital negatively affects their profit margins. I believe that the actions we are taking and must take to address those disparities will define our nation's strength and economic strength in the 21st century, end quote. This happened yesterday. This forum, I watched it live on YouTube on the U.S. Treasury Department's YouTube channel. I watched it live. So share this with these simple Simon ass people putting this nonsense out here on social media, because they have absolutely no clue what they're talking about. They don't study politics. They don't even know where to go to get the information. Vice President Kamala Harris emphasized the historical context of America's racial wealth gap as it relates to enterprise by highlighting the atrocities of the Tulsa Race Massacre. So you heard us play that on our show yesterday, in which an angry white mob decimated the once thriving Greenwood business district, also known as Black Wall Street. Okay, we skip over that. We played that yesterday. Okay, noting the nation's current low unemployment rate, 4.2%, with nearly 6 million jobs being added to the economy since January. Okay, now the whole video is here. Thank you for joining us, U.S. Treasury, the U.S. Department of Treasury, Freedmen's Bank Forum. The video is here of the forum. It's like over 2 hours or something like that. It's over 2 hours. It's right here on YouTube. The Freedmen's Bank Forum is an annual conference that was instituted by former Treasury Secretary Jack Lew, that's under the Obama administration, to address racial economic disparities created under the Obama administration. The forum gets its name from the Freedmen Savings and Trust Company, a private savings bank chartered by Congress in 1865, okay, to collect deposits from the newly emancipated communities. It was the Freedmen's Bank. It collapsed in 1874, okay? But this was an act of Congress. This was about the Republicans in Congress, the Freedmen's Bank. The Freedmen's Bank opened 37 branches in 17 states, according to the National Archives, totaling $3.7 million in assets, or $80 million today after inflation. Then when it collapsed, it was we lost about $2.9 million worth of our deposits in 1874. However, the Freedmen's Bank ultimately collapsed less than a decade after it was founded in 1874. I teach this in my class, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865, 1968. It collapsed in 1874. There was mismanagement. Frederick Douglass was toward the end of the Freedmen's Bank is existence. Frederick Douglass was put in charge of the Freedmen's Bank. He invested thousands of dollars of his own money to prop up the Freedmen's Bank, but it collapsed anyway. The Freedmen's Bank ultimately collapsed less than a decade after it was founded due to mismanagement by its executives. Deputy Treasury Secretary Wally Adeyemo, the first Black person to serve in the role, moderated a panel at the Freedmen's Bank Forum in which he noted, quote, "People think about this as charity or donations when it's not." He said, "It's economics. Investing in these communities makes sense from an economic standpoint," end quote. Okay. How many people told you that this forum took place yesterday? I told you yesterday it took place yesterday. We talked about it on the day it happened. Read the rest of this here. Here's a picture of him as well. Wally Adeyemo, Deputy Treasury Secretary. This is a picture from him testifying during the Senate Banking Committee hearing titled International Policy Update, the Treasury Department Sanctions Policy Review and Other Issues, October 19th, 2021. All right, read the rest of this article. This is from thegrio.com, African-American owned and operated media. Vice President Harris, Treasury announced billions for Black minority businesses at Freedmen's Bank Forum. So check this out. Hopefully mainstream media will pick it up. Hopefully mainstream media will pick it up. Now, some people may get hung up on the term minority. Unlike a lot of people out here who run their mouths and ain't done shit, I've actually owned Black-owned, I've actually managed Black-owned businesses that have had government contracts, and we went and got the we actually bid and got contracts, City of Detroit, County of Wayne, State of Michigan, and they have minority certification. You get that because it gives you extra points when you actually bid on contracts. So I've actually bid and won government contracts. So you got people out here who question minority. You got other people who know how to take advantage of it. Now, which one you want to be? And most of our employees were black as well. So you keep listening to these Simple Simon ass people out here have no clue what they're talking about. And if you're smart, you make a black woman 50% owner of your business or 51% owner of your business because she counts as a double minority. But see, you don't know how to play the game. So yeah, keep that nonsense up. All right. And people talk about Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Claude Anderson was one of my teachers. We talk. We had private conversations. I've interviewed him a number of times. I interviewed him before a lot of other people started interviewing him. So keep running that game. All right. Let's continue. Bidding on government contracts. First of all, your paperwork needs to be correct. Because before you can bid on the government contract, you have to become an official vendor of that government, city, county, state. Your paperwork has to be in order. Your tax returns have to be in order. Sometimes they're going to want a resume of the principal owners of the company. This is something that your Black Chamber of Commerce's should help small businesses do. Get their paperwork in order. If your paperwork's not in order, you can't bid on the government contract. You have to become a certified in most municipalities, in most cities, counties, and states. Because the businesses that I manage, we had contracts at all three levels. And I helped, and with the state of Michigan, I took us through the certification process to become a certified vendor of the state of Michigan, because we already had a training contract lined up. So if you want to become, for instance, so with the cities, usually cities, counties, and states, this is what you do. If you want to become a vendor, what I did for the state of Michigan, because my boss told me, okay, look, we got this training contract lined up. We're not an official vendor of the state of Michigan. He told me, go research how to become a vendor of the state of Michigan. So that's what I did. So I went to michigan.gov and I looked and I searched for how to become a vendor of the state of Michigan. So then they had these information sessions. The calendar came up. They had these information sessions at different locations throughout the state of Michigan with representatives of the state of Michigan, I think it was procurement or that deals with contracts. You go to the information session, it's free. They go through the steps and tell you how to become a vendor of the state of Michigan. They talked about the contracts that are available, things like this. I went to, it just so happened it was, they had one information session at Wayne County Community College, Eastern District. And we were already consultants for Wayne County Community College. I got a whole nother my degree's in business administration. I got a whole nother background. That's why a lot of these Simple Simon ass people out here running this, they're talking theory. I'm listening to them like, get the hell out of here. You ain't never done that. I can tell you just repeating bullshit you heard other people say. You ain't never done none of that stuff. But anyway, so I went to the information session. I talked to the woman. It was a white lady. I forgot her name. I talked to her at the end of the session. I took notes, got her card. We exchanged cards. Told her what we were doing, and we had a educational training company. She said, if you need any help, contact me. I went through the process. We became authorized vendors of the state of Michigan. Then we were able to execute on the contract. With most of these municipalities, you cannot bid on contracts unless you are authorized vendors, because there's a screening process that you have to go through. Okay. And we had contracts with the county of Wayne. Detroit is in Wayne County, county of Wayne. And sometimes what happens is the county commissioners approve contracts with the county, generally speaking. Now, it may change from county to county based upon the county charter. That's why you got to understand county charters. That's why you have to understand city charters, because the county charter and the city charter is like the constitution of the country. So with a lot of cities, the city council approves contracts. In some cases, it's contracts over a certain amount of money. City council approves. If it's under a certain amount of money, then the mayor can just award the contract his or herself if it's under a certain threshold. You have to look and see what it is from city to city. At one point with the city of Detroit, the threshold was over $25,000. It had to be approved by city council. Under $25,000, it was $24,999. The mayor could do it himself. And see, this is how Kwame got into trouble with that Escalade when he leased the Escalade for his wife, because this is years ago, Kwame Kilpatrick, because the lease for the Escalade was under $25,000. If it was over $25,000, he would have had to have gotten approval from city council. Okay. So you have to understand how it works in your city or in your county. Okay. So this is why politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, the adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Money is flowing all around. And people out here just talking about theory ain't done nothing, have no clue what they're talking about, just repeating what they heard somebody on YouTube say. Get out of here with that nonsense. So, but you need to have a business. You need to have a legal business. Okay. And usually, oftentimes they want like at least 3 years of tax returns for the business. So if your business only been in business 6 months, they may have some type of requirements of a minimum amount of time that business has to be established. Okay. When I started working for the company, we had a change in the county executive here in Wayne County. And a lot of times what happens is when you have a change in administration, it could be a change in mayor, it could be a change in county executive, it could be a change in governor. Then changes can be made to the contracting process, to the procurement process. Changes can be made to requirements. So when we had one county executive went out and another county executive went in, they put in more restrictions and they required more from people who were applying to be vendors, be authorized vendors of the county. But also I had to take us through the renewal process to renew our certifications, because we had a small business. We did so the different municipalities will have different certifications that businesses can qualify for. There's a small business certification that your business can qualify for. You have to meet certain requirements, and then when you apply for contracts, you'll get a certain number of points for having this small business certification. We had the so there was small business certification. There was a minority business certification for minority-owned businesses. It could be African American, Latino, women-owned businesses. Okay, because oftentimes women are classified as minorities. Okay, you get an African American woman who's 50% owner or 51% owner. Now you got a double minority. So part of the problem is many of us don't know how to play the game. You have to understand how to play you have to understand the rules of the game to be able to play the game. Okay, so government contracts are huge. Government contracts are huge. And, all of our employees were African Americans. So this is good news here. People need to read this. And what I find interesting is people get hung up on the term minority as opposed to focusing on how the hell to get the damn money. Keep playing those games. Other people ain't worried about the term. They want to know, okay, let's get that money. Keep playing those games. All right, read this article here from thegrio.com. And this other story, we'll look at this quickly. Now I have to get out of here because it's been a long day. I'm tired. I wanted to get to last night, but we ran out of time. I wanted to make sure we got through all of the speech from Vice President Kamala Harris at the Freedmen's Bank Forum that very few people actually knew took place yesterday. Still trying to figure that out. Ancestry.com, we'll talk about this some more tomorrow, and we may talk about this on our Sunday show because we have 2 hours on the Sunday show. Ancestry.com launches new Freedmen's Bureau records to help Black Americans better trace their roots. And I wanted to talk about this yesterday because this ties into the Freedmen's Bureau as well, but we ran out of time. So I said, okay. Now this is an article from August 24th from essence.com. I saw information back then and we dealing with so much stuff. I did not get a chance to talk about this. Ancestry.com launches new Freedmen's Bureau records to help Black Americans better trace their roots. Everyone can access the world's largest digitized and searchable collection of over 3.5 million Freedmen's Bureau and Freedmen's Bank records for free. And it was called the U.S. Bureau of Freedmen, Refugees, and Abandoned Lands. Okay, it wasn't called the Slave Bureau. This goes back to a couple Sundays ago, and I had a caller call in and say he's a descendant of slaves, and I said, weren't the slaves freed? He had to admit they were. Chattel slavery ended in 1865 when Georgia ratified the 13th Amendment, December 6, 1865. When you go look at how they refer to themselves after slavery ended, U.S. Bureau of Freedmen, Refugees, and Abandoned Lands, Freedmen's Bank. They call themselves freedmen, or ex-slaves, former slaves. Why is it 156 years after chattel slavery, you have people want to refer to themselves as descendants of slaves when the slaves were freed? They didn't want to call themselves slaves after slavery ended. Go research this. Why do some of us want to put our ancestors back into a status that they, one, were freed from, two, many of them took up arms to fight to free themselves? Because it was about 200,000 African Americans who fought in the Civil War. And they fought for their freedom and the freedom of their family and future generations. So why 156 years after chattel slavery ended, and there were states that ended slavery before then. Vermont in 1777, and Massachusetts around 1781, and Philadelphia around 1780. There were states that abolished slavery before 1865. So why do some of us want to put our ancestors back into a status that not only were they freed from 156 years ago, but took up arms to free themselves from? Maybe it's because some of us are operating from a slave mentality. Your thoughts create feelings, your feelings create actions and behaviors, your actions and behaviors create results. Maybe some of us are operating based upon a slave mentality. And we're projecting that on our ancestors who were freed from that condition. So, once again, the Freedmen's Bureau. Ancestry.com launches new Freedmen's Bureau records to help Black Americans or African Americans better trace their roots. So last year's social uprising. So in 2020, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. Last year's social uprising encouraged conversations about this country's history of racism, systemic and systematic oppression of African Americans, with many now wanting to know more about their lineage. Now, thanks to Ancestry.com, it is easier than ever for African Americans, or what they call, and I don't use the abbreviation BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color. I don't use that. BIPOC sounds like Tupac, but I don't use that. But anyway, that's what they want to use. Okay. To discover where they came from. Today, Ancestry announced the unveiling. So this is August 2021. Ancestry announced the unveiling of the world's largest digitized collection of Freedmen's Bureau and Freedmen's Bank records. This means that more than 3.5 million records can help descendants of previously enslaved people in the U.S. learn more about their families. Ancestry.com says the collection can enable meaningful family history breakthroughs because it is likely the first time newly freed African Americans would appear in records after emancipation in 1863, as many enslaved people were previously excluded from standard census and federal documents. Standard census and federal documents. Now, we know Emancipation Proclamation did not free the enslaved Africans. It's going to be the 13th Amendment ratified December 6, 1865, when Georgia ratifies the 13th Amendment. Quote, free access to this collection will enable meaningful Black family history discoveries for generations to come, says Nika Sewell Smith, professional genealogist. She said, finding your ancestors' names and stories on Ancestry is possible, and unearthing them can shine a light that helps guide us going forward. Learning about the resiliency of those who came before us and the obstacles they overcame inspires us to know we can do the same. That's absolutely true. That's one of the things that history does. It teaches you to have a greater respect for our ancestors, what they survived, their accomplishments, their achievements, and learn from mistakes that they made. And the people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past, in the present, and the future to meet the needs of the community. Okay, so when you study our ancestors and what they accomplished, what they were able to achieve, it reinstills a sense of pride in us, but causes us to have a greater admiration and respect for them also. All right, let's see here. We have let's change the title here. All right. Now, the Freedmen's Bureau was created near the end of the U.S. Civil War. Civil War is 1861, 1865, to help formerly enslaved people transition from slavery to citizenship by providing food, housing, education, and medical care. And this is what they were doing. One of the things the Freedmen's Bureau was doing was helping reconnect African-American families. It was helping us find lost loved ones who had been sold off during slavery. Okay, and they were taking out ads in newspapers to help us find lost loved ones. This is one of the things the Freedmen's Bureau was doing. Another thing they were doing, they were helping us get married legally, because that's something that we've always valued family, and a lot of us wanted to get married legally after slavery ended. This is something else that the Freedmen's Bureau was helping us do as well. There's a piece from blackpast.org on the Freedmen's Bureau, which existed from the Freedmen's Bureau existed from 1865 to 1872. Originally, it was supposed to only exist for a year. Okay, then it was extended. Okay. So they provided food, medical care, housing, education. The Freedmen's Bureau also helped destitute white people as well, because there's a lot of destitute white people also, especially in the South. So the Freedmen's Bureau helped them as well as the U.S. Bureau of Freedmen, Refugees, and Abandoned Lands. The Freedmen's Bureau supported more than 4 million people, which also included some impoverished white people and veterans of the U.S. colored troops. Freedmen's Bureau records include labor contracts. This is something else that the Freedmen's Bureau helped do. They helped us negotiate labor contracts, rations, apprenticeships. The records Bureau records include labor contracts, rations, apprenticeships, letters, marriages, and more. Freedmen's bank records, which are also part of the digitized collection, include family members' names, thousands of signature cards, and details about the individual depositors. Despite its significance, awareness of the Freedmen's Bureau is very low because we don't understand history. According to a Harris poll survey by Ancestry, a staggering 72% of Americans surveyed have never heard of the Freedmen's Bureau. And as I said before, America must have a massive history lesson because Americans are very, very ignorant of history. And this is why you have the co-option of critical race theory and the obfuscation of what critical race theory means to then distort it, to then pass laws at the state level to restrict what can be taught about history. Because whoever controls the teaching of the history will control the trajectory of the future. And this is what we're looking at. However, nearly all of those familiar with the Freedmen's Bureau, 90%, believe it was a turning point in American history and that it still impacts American lives today. And 87% of Americans surveyed agreed that it is important for the public to have access to historical records like those saved by the Freedmen's Bureau in order for African Americans to be able to trace their family roots. But there's a lot of white people who have family roots there too, because there was intermixing that took place. All right, read the rest of this article here from essence.com. Ancestry.com launches new Freedmen's Bureau records to help Black Americans better trace their roots. This is from essence.com. So check that out. All right, if you'd like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the TheAHNShow through Cash App, $ the TheAHNShow through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/TheAHNShow, paypal.me/TheAHNShow. We're here 6 days a week. This type of information you won't hear other places. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, etc. Also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, you can click on the yellow donate button. Now, be sure to register for the online courses I teach on Saturdays and Sundays, where we get deep into the history. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And we deal with history leading up to the Civil War as well, starting with the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. We talk about the Freedmen's Bureau and the Freedmen's Bank, things like this, and the Mexican-American War, 1846, 1848. We talk about Texas becoming a state in the Union, 1845. Texas winning its independence from Mexico, 1836. Mexico winning its independence from Spain as well. And looking at this trajectory, we talk about the Spanish-American War, 1898, and Cuba fighting against Spain for their independence, and looking at the result of Christopher Columbus and the Spanish crown conquering Haiti and Puerto Rico, well, Hispaniola, and the western third of the island of Hispaniola was Saint Dominique, and Saint Dominique is going to become Haiti. But you look at these nations, island nations, that Columbus conquers on his 4 voyages, and we deal with this in a lot in the first class that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. You know, and we look at Barbados being conquered by the British in 1627. You look at the trajectory 400 or 500 years later, you can trace back the conditions that they're in today and what's going on today. You can trace that back to what happened 400 or 500 years ago. Okay. And we talked about Barbados cutting ties with Queen Elizabeth II. Okay. And if you remember back when Meghan Markle married Prince Harry, I said Meghan Markle was marrying into a family of colonizers. And I wasn't calling them colonizers because they were white. I'm calling them colonizers because 100 years ago, Great Britain had colonized 1/5 of the world population. 1/5 of the world population 100 years ago lived under British rule. They're colonizers. So you look at that history: Puerto Rico, Haiti, Barbados, Jamaica. Okay, all of them were colonized. Many of them by the Spanish, because the Spanish were the second ones involved in the transatlantic slave trade. So we do a lot of that in the first class that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So we teach this on Sundays, 12 noon, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For both of the classes, we do we have a PowerPoint presentation, we have video clips, articles, book references, everything. And we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime. You can watch from around the world, and you still have full access to the archive class even after the class is over with. So we just posted a link here. You can register for both classes for only $70, regularly $130 each. You can use this with your children as well. I would say the content is PG-13. Okay. And we have the information here right on the homepage of our website. As soon as you register, you can start watching the content. You can join us in class this weekend. All right. African-American business owners, email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Current promotion, buy 1 month, get 2 months free. And we take your 30-second and 60-second commercial, put it into the video versions of these shows when we rebroadcast on our social media platforms, and also into the audio podcast of our shows as well. African-American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast and email us at AHNshow@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Remember, right now is correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.
Soul in Motion, celebrating 38 years in the arts. This energetic ensemble of dancers and drummers was started by percussionist Michael Friend and is led by choreographer Associate Director Pam Lassiter. Based in the Washington, D.C. area, Soul in Motion is now accepting bookings for Black History Month, Juneteenth, and summer festivals in 2022. Soul in Motion is also available for more intimate events like naming ceremonies and weddings. To find out more or to book your date, call 240-452-1349 or send an email to info@soulinmotion.org. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Soul in Motion, celebrating our history, our culture, our future. Soul in Motion, theater, African dance, and drumming since 1984.
Kwanzaa is coming, and the TheAHNShow.com has all of your Kwanzaa needs. Order your Kwanzaa set today, which includes a kinara, candles, a mat, a cup, the African American flag, and a basket. Visit TheAHNShow.com, TheAHNShow.com. They have kinara sets, which include a candle holder, candles, a mat, and a cup. Kwanzaa is December 26th through January the 1st. Add the early bird discount code for 10% off your order placed before November 28th. Visit TheAHNShow.com and place your order today. TheAHNShow.com has all of your Kwanzaa needs to celebrate this African American Pan-African holiday. TheAHNShow.com.
Black on Purpose Television Network. Yes, Black on Purpose Television Network. All black, all positive, all the time. The largest black-owned streaming television network in the world. Bringing our people together worldwide. Controlling our messages, our stories, our way. Black TV the way it should be. Black music, Black history, and more. 30 plus channels, thousands of shows. Black on Purpose Television Network. Subscribe now.
Health and well-being have long been a taboo subject in the so-called African American community. So I enlisted the help of mental health experts, thought leaders, and activists to help kill the ghost of Willie Lynch and heal from post-traumatic slave syndrome.
We experience trauma a lot of times on a subconscious level. So sometimes something happens to us and we know that it's traumatizing, but we don't really recognize the extent of the trauma.